Survive the Day Devblog number 1. Quick backstory to set up what I'll be showing you. I started creating these office sprites like over 7 years ago, and so far I've made 2 small games and Dave Man. The 2 small games, which I call levels, you can find them on loubagel.com and play them for free, and Dave Man is available on Steam. Though Dave Man is a commercially released game, it uses 1-bit version of these assets. So I haven't really made a full game with these art assets. And since I've spent so much time on them, I'm like, I gotta make a full game with them, but haven't been able to decide between different ideas. Eventually I thought, what if I just reuse the same assets for multiple games? I mean, I've seen indie games take like 7 years before, so if I want to make more than one game, would the second one take half as long? If all the art was taken care of, would I be able to make twice as many games in my lifetime if I used the same art? Whatever the math works out to being, I'm not going to hesitate to use Survive the Day art for multiple games, and that's why I'm calling it more of a franchise. Let me know in the comments what you think about this as a player. Would it bother you to play 2 games with the same art? Or maybe think of it as a sequel with the same art as the original? Anyway, after getting all the art assets into my game engine, I'm like, that takes a while, so why not have one file to start all these projects from? And then once I did that, I'm like, why not just add all the basics, controls, movement, Z-index, and not to mention menus. So I haven't been working on a specific game, but I've been working on getting these features into my game engine in a modular fashion that can be used in different ways or completely switched off when not needed. That way, I'm hoping it'll be helpful for multiple games in the future. And that's what this devblog is going to go over. All those features I've been working on, so let's just jump into those features. First off, as I mentioned, getting all the art assets into the game. That includes all the character sprites as well. Some of them, as you saw, were full frame, and some of them have the head separate from the body. That's because a lot of the characters have the same body type, so I'm working on if I can reuse the walking animations and a bunch of different animations I want to make with only having to make them once, not once per character. Then I'm also messing around with color replace here in case I need to make some characters on the fly by swapping out skin color, hair color, also so I can match the skin color of the reusable walking animations and such. And then as you can see, obviously other basics, movement, Z-index, collisions, not being able to walk through these walls and showing up on the right side of them, the Z-index. And then there's walking through doors. Obviously you can walk through doors, but as you'll see later, you won't be able to see through the doors. I just kind of like playing with the door opening animation. Of course, controls is another fundamental feature to implement. What you see here is a zoom mechanic I think will work well for level 1 and 2 remake, where the player holds a button to zoom out to see more of the level, and when released, the zoom will return to normal. Here you can see Dave is moving to the location clicked. Most of the focus with controls is making sure the game feels good on both keyboard and gamepad, but I also wanted to experiment with touch or click, that way I have a better idea if anything might work well on mobile. That pathfinding can also be used on NPCs, as you can see Chatty Cathy navigating around to where I'm clicking. Setting up different dialogue options has also been a focus. I bought a new sprite font pack from SomePX, I'll link in the description. So I've been getting those into the game and making the text bubble, the white part around the text, dynamically grow or shrink to the text size. Also working with multiple languages, then a dialogue conversation so you can see multiple lines of dialogue at once, kind of inspired by comics. Then also a pop-up dialogue in case I want to go that route at times. I haven't really made any decisions, but these are all options now that I have available. You can also see a little gray bar in the bottom right hand corner of each of the text bubbles. That indicates to the user how long the text is going to be on the screen, and there's also a button you can press to proceed to the next or make the whole bubble disappear, and there's another button you can hold to pause that timer when you need more time to read it. Then there's what I'm calling line of sight canvas. This is inspired by stealth games like Commandos. In this version, the darker red is direct sight, while the lighter red shows higher line of sight, which is blocked by low cover. So for example, you can see over a cubicle, but you can't see someone ducking behind a cubicle. Construct has a line of sight behavior built in, but they don't have a way to visualize it, which in any type of stealth game is pretty important for the player. So I loop through ray tracing and draw a field of vision to a canvas. All the settings such as range and field of view are easily changed, and also easy to flip this completely on or off. If you're familiar with level 1 of Survive the Day, you will know why this is initially created. For Dave to hide from Chatty Cathy. You can see him ducking to avoid Chatty Cathy's extended line of sight here, but in the long run, Who knows what I'll be able to use this for, which I'll hit on a bit later in the video. As already mentioned, Dave can duck behind low cover. Of course, I have to adjust the animation depending on the state of his coffee mug. Then with line of sight, having a little fun with it, Tom's eyes follow Dave. Dave's eyes also follow Chatty Cathy during his idle animation. This one isn't actually line of sight, they follow her regardless of obstacles in the way. Next is interactions, which I expect there to be a lot in the office to interact with, so this needed to be flexible and scalable. First off, I wanted to show the player when there is an interaction and update the UI with a different description of the interaction. This means I constantly have to check for interactions available even before the button is pressed. The reason for this is that sometimes I get annoyed in games where you're looking for something when you have to constantly spam press a button to check everything, especially when a bunch of dialogue pops up that you aren't interested in. So here's a little montage of some of the interactions. Most are self-explanatory, so I'll give you a little break from the sound of my voice. Up next is something a bit different, a stealth prototype. Since I already had the line of sight feature set up, I figured why not experiment further with stealth aspects. I've always loved stealth games like Metal Gear Solid, Commando, Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, and the Hitman series, but those games are very different from 2D pixel art, so I figured sharing a prototype could be a good way to see how far I can lean into the stealth genre. If interested, hop on my mailing list, because if it isn't very polished, I might just only share it there. To finish up the video, here are a few bit more trivial items. First, just for fun, I wanted to see if I could animate the cubicles bouncing like the plants do in Mario 3. I would say this will probably never get used, but knowing me, I'll probably find a way to work it in somehow. Next is a test of turning a character's head independent of their body. This may seem insignificant, but when dealing with collision boxes, it is inevitable that players will find themselves in a spot where they think they can move but are blocked. I thought turning of the head could be a little feedback to the player, like telling them, I know you're trying to go this way. Don't worry, your controller isn't out of batteries, it's just blocked. Here I have what's almost like a little Easter egg. If the player presses the door close button and gets in the elevator before it closes, Tom will come over and open it. Obviously it doesn't make perfect sense as you don't get trapped in an elevator in real life and you can just press a button to get back out, but I couldn't let the player get trapped inside here, so instead of just having it open back up, I thought I'd put some NPC pathfinding to the test and have Tom do it. And to finish off the video, I have something I'm referring to as cut shots. These are just shots around the office, kind of like a screensaver type of vibe, which I thought I might use for the background of the title screen. Since there isn't much to describe on these, I'll make my closing remarks while these are playing. Though this vlog had a long list, these are pretty basic features, so there's still a ton of work to do towards the new game and the level remakes. And I'm not going to ask for the like and follow, but if you think you might enjoy my games, I'd ask you to sign up for my mailing list. I'm really bad at being consistent with sending anything out on the mailing list, but my goal is to grow it so when I'm ready to launch a new Steam page for a new game, I can ask people already interested to wish list. You know, gotta play the algorithm game. Also, any type of feedback is definitely welcome in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.